The Eagles traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. We talked about it a little bit before. Buccaneers coming off of I don't want to say surprising loss, but a loss that was a lot more one-sided than a lot of people thought, even if they thought the Broncos were going to win that game. Eagles coming off a big win against the New Orleans Saints, so they're on the road once again here. What is your matchup that matters, Carmen?
Well, in the way that Sean Payton has kind of had the Bucks number, Todd Bowles number, all of that, Todd Bowles has had Jalen Hurts number. So it's the Bucks D line versus Jalen Hurts and what they can do against him. Vita Vea was back at practice as of Wednesday. I'm not sure if that's been released yet today, whether or not he's practiced for a second straight day, but that is going to be a huge boost for this Bucks D line. In particular, if you can get that pressure up the middle, which Vita Vea is so good at doing, and they've been without Kalijah Kancey as well. So they've been hurting on the interior. I mean, I think because the Bucks figured out so many solutions against the Lions, that was kind of put on the back burner as to how hurt this Bucks defense is. And then you saw those vulnerabilities against Sean Payton and the Broncos. So are you going to get some of those guys back? Jalen Hurts has the third worst passing grade versus pressure, and he has no big time throws when pressured. One touchdown, two interceptions under pressure. So you have to get to Jalen Hurts. Again, he is more mobile. And the Eagles have kind of, over the last couple of weeks, it seems, unlocked that running potential out of Jalen Hurts. And that's kind of how their offense has started to roll a little bit. Although if you want to call 19 points rolling, I don't know. I do think that though this is going to come down to how much pressure you can get on Jalen Hurts and if you can get to him. And so far, historically, we have seen Todd Bowles be able to do that.
My matchup that matters is now. I think a lot of people are going to say like, "Hey, say something about Devontae Smith and AJ Brown." Yeah. If they don't go, it's rough. There you go. That's the breaking from PFF stats. It's going to be rough if those guys can't go for the Eagles offense. But of the guys who I think are going to play, Godwin and Evans versus the cornerbacks for the Philadelphia Eagles, Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, like the rest of those guys, I think is going to be a big time matchup because one, you got Chris Godwin playing really well. 90.3 receiving grade this season. He has been a consistent force for them in the passing game every single week. He's playing like the Chris Godwin who gave us really great highs a couple of years ago. He is back at that level playing really, really well. On the other side of things, it feels like a big Evans game is coming, right? Because Baker talked about how much faith that he has had in Mike Evans. And we saw that in week 1. We didn't really see that in week 2, and we didn't really see that in week 3. His high right now in terms of single games so far this season through 3 games is just 61 yards. So I think that we could be in for a major, I'm going to give Mike a million chances to show us the kind of wide receiver, remind us the kind of wide receiver he is. And so, especially coming off a loss, I got to think that Baker and Mike Evans sort of got together at some point this week and were like, hey, or at least Baker said to him, was like, dude, I'm running the passing offense through you. Like, you're going to shine in this one. We're going to take it to him at home. We're going to get you back in the end zone. So I feel like a big game for Evans is coming. Can the Eagles and their cornerbacks respond to those things? The consistency of what Godwin has been, but then also what could be a really big high target Mike Evans game, because the Eagles are in the top half of the league in terms of passing yards allowed and receptions allowed. So they are playing, when I say that, I mean in a good way. Like they've been playing fine. They're right around like 14th, 13th, I think, in both of those categories. So right around the middle of the league. Do they have what it takes to really stop those two wide receivers? Because coming off of a loss the way that Tampa is, I think that they're looking to put up some points, and they're going to try to really run that offense through those two stars. What's your plus factor in this one?
It's going to be on the other side for the Philadelphia offense. It's all right. If you have Jalen Hurts' number, then Saquon needs to get going. And we've seen the Bucks uncharacteristically be letting up quite a few yards on the ground. They've allowed the second most rushing touchdowns in the league of 6, and they've allowed the 8th most rushing yards, 413 so far this season, which again, the calling card of Todd Bowles' defense is it's built off of stopping the run first. And we saw that, in the early aughts of his tenure in Tampa Bay in 2019, where the Bucks had the best run defense in the league for multiple years running. And this just is very uncharacteristic. And I think it has a lot to do with how injured they are. So again, if you can get Vita Vea back and maybe start that defensive line in particular, kind of stopping Saquon Barkley from doing Saquon Barkley things,
right?
That's going to go a really long way. But the Eagles, I think, to have a chance at this game, are going to need to get Saquon going.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's got to be a big Saquon game if they're going to win this one down in Tampa. My plus factor is Jalen Carter. He was an absolute monster last week. when he was facing off against Cesar Ruiz at right guard for the New Orleans Saints. And he could potentially have another juicy matchup here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Carter had a 90.5 PFF passing grade, or has that this season. That's first among interior defensive linemen. 10 pressures, which is tied for 8th. He's been a beast all year long, but especially last week. So he's coming off of a hot streak. Ben Bredesen, Cody Barton, or Graham Barton, Cody Mock. Neither of those three have a pass blocking grade above 62.0. So they've been better when it comes to run blocking, but pass blocking, they're going up against a beast in Jalen Carter. He could be a one-man game wrecker if those interior offensive linemen don't have probably their best game that they have had yet in 2024. So I think he's a plus factor in this one.
One call out for this game too.
Yes,
it didn't really fit anywhere necessarily, but Lane Johnson potentially being out for this game. There was one stat I found, thanks to NGS again. It was the team's pressure rate allowed goes from 13th lowest in the league to the highest when Lane Johnson does not play.
Wow.
That is really, that could make the most difference. I guess I could have put Lane Johnson or his backup as the difference maker in this game, but I talked a lot about how Jalen Hurts is not good under pressure. Lane Johnson seems to be the singular protector, which is very it's rare for a right tackle to matter this much. But Lane Johnson does. So.
Lane Johnson absolutely does. No, that's a good shout out. I'm glad that you got that in there.